Why can't I handle this anymore? I used to be able to put it back in the box. And now that box feels like it's a jack in the box. My anger gets the better of me. My relationships, they're all strained. I'm drinking way more than I'd like to be. Why can't I lock it away like I've always done? What's wrong with me? Those questions came from a man who did 6 years in the army and 17 years in the police force, most of them in armed response. He's the guy that everyone wants on the team, the competent, confident leader, the alpha, unflappable, the man who can handle everything. Until one day, he couldn't. And not because of one single catastrophic incident, but because of 23 years of operational trauma that had built up. And here's the truth. The symptoms were there many years before he had that first conversation with me. And this is what I'm here to talk to you about today. This statistic is from the military veterans charity Combat Stress. 14 years is the average time that it takes a veteran from leaving service to asking for help, living with PTSD. I'll talk about what happens in those years and why that might be. And then I'll talk about what we can do about it. And this idea of early intervention. Because the question isn't, can we do something about this? We absolutely can. The question is, why are we waiting until people break it before we act? Interestingly, 14 years is round about the same number of years that I've worked in frontline services myself. I started in the prison service in 2011, and then I worked in the NHS for about 10 years, mostly in early intervention in psychosis services, which is kind of where this idea draws from. As you can imagine, these environments are pretty volatile. We trust each other in these teams. We use dark humor to cope. And whenever you ask anybody working in these services how they're doing, I can predict with absolute certainty the kind of response that you're going to get. So let me ask you now, show of hands, is there anybody here from a military or a frontline service? Actually, I can't see, so I'll just assume that there is. Okay, I see a couple. So you probably know where this is going already. Whenever you ask anybody in these services how they are, you'll get, I'm fine. Yep. Let me tell you what I'm fine really means. I'm fine means the day is burning down around me. I'm running on 7 cups of coffee and pure adrenaline. And if somebody so much as breathes on me, I might fight the urge to jab them in the eye with my cane. I'm kidding, obviously, but you get the idea. I'm fine is the cultural script. It's what you're supposed to say. It's what keeps you in the team. It's what proves that you can handle everything. And that gap between I'm fine and what's actually happening, that is where those 14 years live. It's where that box is getting full. And nobody knows how to identify or how to say it out loud. So what happens in these 14 years? Well, let me take you back to that veteran with 23 years of service. He left the army after 6 years. He deployed to Iraq. There were some incidents that happened there, but he'd left now, and surely he'd leave it all behind, right? He joined the police. He worked in response teams, and he absolutely loved it. He was quickly recruited into armed response with his skills, and he thrived. Everybody wanted him on the team. He was effective, reliable. That box, it stayed firmly closed. And then gradually, as the years passed, he started noticing some warning signs. His sleep started becoming more and more disrupted. I'm not talking about a couple of nights here and there. I'm talking about months on end of broken sleep. Waking up in the night, not being able to get back to sleep. Some dreams of incidents that he'd been to started popping in. He told himself it was a shift work. I mean, who sleeps well anyway on shift, right? And then he started noticing that he felt on edge all the time. He'd walk into a room and scan it, make sure he knew where the exits were. He'd sit in the corner, making sure that he could see everything and everyone. He couldn't switch off, not even at home. And then he started noticing his irritability was increasing. Small things that wouldn't have bothered him before started to set him off. It was like the patience was gone. Then he started drinking a bit more. Before it was a couple of nights here and there. Now it was a lot more frequent. It was numbing. Alcohol, work, exercise, anything, just to turn the body down on its nervous system. And finally, he saw it was growing from his relationships. His family connections started to fade. He felt safer in disconnection because connection felt unsafe. But whenever anybody asked, he was still fine. By the time he came to have that first conversation with me, that box wasn't just popping open. It was flying open. Images of past incidents launching at him intrusively, unexpectedly. His relationships deteriorated. Angry all the time, drinking. By this point, he'd now started thinking about his exit. And not just from the police force, but from life. As you can imagine, this not only impacted him, but everybody around him. The connection with his daughter, the person who was the most important to him, who now didn't recognize her dad. His team were dealing with his absence, valuable officer. The force now dealing with the very familiar cycle of endless retention issues and constant improvement. This is what I'm fine costs. And this is what 14 years of waiting looks like. So now that we know the risk factors, what then can we do about it? Well, we intervene early. And the reason for this is that early on, the brain is flexible. We have neuroscience on our side. But when we wait many years, we're now dealing with 14 years of embedded trauma responses. And we're trying to rewire a brain that sees nothing but darkness. It needs to start with systems when people are in the job. We need training so that people can recognize the warning signs in themselves, because this is part of the problem. People don't know what's happening by the time it's too late. We need routine psychological screening. And I'm not talking about how are you doing, mate? I'm talking about proper assessments to identify risk. And when I say routine, I mean as routine as getting a physical health check. And then we need treatment. And this is where it gets interesting. In the UK, we've been now offering intensive trauma therapy. And what this means is that instead of the traditional weekly therapy that you'd normally have, you get a concentrated amount of therapy in a very short time frame. We're now offering 24 hours of therapy in 2 weeks. That is the equivalent of 6 months worth of therapy weekly in 2 weeks. The results are outstanding. Better than anything I've delivered in my career. And the reason for this is not because it's different treatments. We're offering the same therapies that we've always done. But it's the concentrated time frame. In those 2 weeks, there's no avoidance, no distractions. We hit the trauma hard and we hit it fast. And we're resolving things that people have been carrying for decades before their defenses have a chance to kick free. Compare that to when we wait. The person has lost years of their life. The family has lost the person that they knew. And the organization has lost a valuable, high-performing officer. 2 weeks of treatment now, or 2 decades of slow collapse. Which cost are we willing to accept? I know which I choose. That veteran sent me an email last month, December. He said that the work that we'd done had changed his life. That he could sleep again. That he'd got his relationship with his daughter back. That he was becoming a regular dude. And then he said something that landed with me. He said, "You were born to do this work." That hit me right in the feels, because he's right. I am unequivocally committed to my craft. I will treat trauma for as long as my mind and my body will allow me to. But if I could wake up tomorrow and be out of a job to eradicate this condition, I would do it in a heartbeat. Because this destroys lives. And not just the person, but everyone around them. So I leave you with this. Urgency. If you're a leader in a military or a frontline organization, I urge you to get routine psychological screening and an early intervention infrastructure. Believe me when I say this is going to cost you thousands less than decades of recruitment and retention cycles. If you're in active service or you have been, I urge you, don't ignore the warning signs. Trust me that getting help at year 2 is going to cost you infinitely less than at year 14. And if you love someone in this work, I urge you to know what to look out for and when to push them towards help. Because 14 years is too long. And they might not make it. Ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged to have been able to share with you the topic that I am the most passionate about. Thank you so much for listening.